Hey all, Heretic here. Today I want to talk with you about Interrogator Whitemane. This card has really upended some of the late games I've encountered lately, really making some builds just kind of completely difficult to play, if not impossible. And I want to go over some of the ways you could be playing them, countering them. Some people just don't understand maybe some of the nuance of Whitemane. So let's get into it. Let's talk about it. First, let's talk about Whitemane and what they do. Whitemane is an 8/5 neutral, which reads, start of combat, give the enemies opposite this taunt, they take double damage. Right? It's bad for you when across the way from any of your minions, suddenly your minion has taunt and double damage. Even if it's, 300 health minion you have, essentially now they only have 150 health because every time they take damage, it's doubled. So even in that regard, it's not great. But if it's across from your Soul Juggler, your Mechano Tank, your Baron Rivendare, all of a sudden, you're in a lot of trouble. Whitemane lets you target key minions. It lets you get in that backfield way before you should and do some real damage. And the big issue is, since they're tier 5 and neutral, they are in literally every lobby potentially. You can use it against your opponent. It can be used against you. Now, how you go about using Whitemane effectively, well, if you've already fought someone and you know where they're putting, these key minions, just place them in the according spot and you're all set. If you know they're running a stolen gold board, for instance, well, odds are their Baron Rivendare is going to be in slot 7. If they're smart, they might be sliding it around still, even going, all right, well, I'm not going to get the full effect. But more often than not, especially in lower tier lobbies, they're going to be sitting there in slot 7 because they want that gold bonus. And they don't know if you have Whitemane yet. So your biggest bang for your buck is if you can just take them out when you get to use it, but at least you're getting that one big leg up on them, and then you get to play the mind games later. Maybe you want to go for a more dramatic play. Maybe you're not looking to snipe a piece of their board. Maybe you put Whitemane right in the middle of your board. You take a nice, big, nasty cleave minion. You take your Foe Reaper, your Cave Hydra, and yes, even your Wildfire Elemental, smash into something in the middle of their board and just blow holes in their line. Wildfire works great because, hey, that minion takes double damage, so the overkill damage is even greater that can spread to the other minions. If you golden the Wildfire, you're just going to melt their board. And a big enough cleave, it doesn't really matter. You're just going to take out 3 minions. All right, Heretic, I get it. Whitemane is very bad when used against me. How do I counter it? Okay, well, if you're paying Baron Rivendare or something along that, one key minion that you need to keep alive, what I do is I actually write down, especially starting turn 9 and 10, where I had my Baron or that key minion positioned and who I fought. That way, the next time I fight that person, it's never in the same spot. Sometimes it will be because it's a mind games thing, but basically, statistically, they're going to think you left it where it was because a lot of people don't tend to dance it around. So if you're dancing it around, they're going to swing and miss. Their Whitemane's going to hit something hopefully less effective, like maybe a Leroy you just happened to park in your Baron's old spot and not get the swing they're looking for. And yes, a really good counter to someone who's using Whitemane, if you can get a Divine Shield, is to put your Baron Rivendare in slot 1. Just have it sit there, have it bounce off whatever taunt they have because it's got shield, and not worry about it. Now their Whitemane's sitting in somewhere slot 2 through 7. You don't really care. Unless your opponent is really going meta on you, and he's also put it in slot 1 because he knew you'd do that, but at that point, all bets are off. Who knows? Now, if your opponent's using Whitemane to cleave the center of your board, that's a little harder because they can bounce it back and forth. Basically, the best thing you can do is if you have a Leroy, have it positioned next to somewhere in the middle of your board, basically not in slot 1 or slot 7. So it's statistically far more likely to catch the cleave, die, and take out at least the cleave because if it's running, if it's a nightmare scenario where it's got Wind Fury, cleave, and Divine Shield, taking that out early does not hurt you at all. But this one's really hard to counter because you never really know where they're going to put it. So there's only so much you can do depending on the builds you're looking for. Just try not to clump your minions too much that are really important. Maybe go for a more spread build that may not be the most effective in a normal setup, but at least when you know your opponent's pulling this shenanigans, you can try to counter it best you can. Remember, Whitemane is just an 8/5. So after this neat little ability's gone, they've given up one of the slots on the board for a utility purpose that doesn't do much offensively. And finally, be wary of Whitemane trying to be truly tricky. And And that's when the Whitemane player will run a 6 minion board and have Whitemane either be in slot 1 or slot 6, depending what's more effective against your build or working with theirs. And that's where they will get 2 minions. So if it's in slot 1, it's going to hit with its debuff minion 1 and 2 on your board, or 6 and 7 if it's in slot 6. You know, it doesn't matter how much you're dancing around. When they start getting these extra minions that super matter to you, it hurts all the same. They go down even more so, but if their board is powerful enough and they know they're taking out the absolute key minions for you, they won't care and they will win the game. Remember, this cuts both ways. You can use it against them as well as they can use it against you, depending what kind of board you're running respectively. Whitemane in a game like Battlegrounds is very, very powerful. You have this minion that now allows you to target parts of the board that you shouldn't be able to and do ridiculous amounts of damage to the vulnerable part of someone's board, or just take out a key minion before it gets the buffs it needs to get. Whitemane doesn't really fit in the Hearthstone Battlegrounds typical system. It's an evolution of the game. They're either going to go this way more, or this is an experiment. They're going to walk away from this and say, it didn't work that great. I expect the next big patch that Whitemane is either going to go to tier 6, which means there'll be 7 of them instead of 9 in the pool, which isn't a big change, but at least it makes it harder to find them, or possibly it's just going to be removed. Whitemane doesn't, like I said earlier, really fit the idea of Battlegrounds as it stands now. It's more of an interactive counterplay build, but Battlegrounds is more of a I do my thing, you do your thing. It just doesn't feel the same to me. It kind of feels a little out of place. That being said, I like it a lot in the context of, all right, well, I've got Baron Rivendare and you've got Whitemane. I like the dance. Like, okay, well, you've given up power on your board to snipe my Baron, which is one of the most powerful cards in like a leapfrog build that there is. That's really important to me. I need that to survive. But that being said, I equally hate her when it's sitting in the middle of the board, cleave hits, blows out the line, and my board is now effectively completely done by this one random tier 5 minion, which seems super powerful. So that much I don't really enjoy. But what do you think? Do you think she should be tier 6? Do you think they should just be removed? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Where do you stand on Whitemane? Either way, thanks for watching. I hope you had a good time. He has big cleave, and he had Whitemane, but what? That's both? Wait, why the hell does it hit both? What the? I'm sorry, what was that? Is that how it's supposed to work? It hits both?